Welcome everyone. Credit Oman is the country's official export credit agency. For over 30 years, Credit Oman has catalyzed the trade in the country and beyond to regional and international markets. And with me here to share recent achievements and updates, and also to highlight us on important points related to this unit is Shaikh Khalil bin Ahmed al-Harthy, who is the CEO of Credit Oman. Welcome to the studio.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Ahmed, and thank you for hosting us. Happy always to be on the media to spread the awareness about Credit Oman. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for being here, and let's dive right into it, Shaikh Khalil. So, what is Credit Oman?
Okay, well, thank you. I think we keep getting these questions quite often, which is a positive sign to me. Credit Oman was basically a unit set up in 1991. The objective of the unit to look after exports. It has then become independent financially and administratively by 2001. And since then, it was, independent all through. So you can safely say it's about 32 years old. It used to be known as Export Credit Agency of Oman. The name has been modernized to reflect the recent changes in the market. Therefore, it is called now Credit Oman. So that is the initiation of Credit Oman. Why Credit Oman? Well, everybody knows that Oman, like the many countries within the region, relies heavily on the oil and gas incomes. So in attempt to spread the revenues and spread the economy across the diversification of the economy, the intention was that there should be an enabler to enable trade. So, as you know, most of the revenues arrive from oil and gas predominantly. So the diversification looks after generating other revenues and propelling economy from other dimension, and that is either from industrial or from service sectors, whatever they produce, and that the transaction of buy and sell of those is called basically trade. You might have heard in the Vision 2040, the government aims to rely over 90% in non-oil and gas in GDP. There is another important indicator for the vision also to look after spreading the products which are being exported from Oman. So there is no heavy concentration of products as it was the case probably in oil and gas. So looking after diversifying the portfolio of products, production and export and services for that matter. There's another third indicator which looks after spreading geographically through. So as you know, Oman is in a very unique location. Where it meets the east and west, where we have the Indian subcontinent, we have the East African shore, and the connection within the GCC and the northern parts. So it sits in a very, very strategic location. However, the classic trade partners remain to be the nearing countries for obvious reasons, for the logistics, meet of minds, closer specs of products have been, identified. So it is normally accepted to have the proximity of our neighbors by geography to be the largest trade partners, which is still the case. However, in 2040, it emphasizes on growing up those. So in that note, Credit Oman, for instance, on average has approval of about exports of 50 countries on an ongoing basis. Since inception, I think we have covered over 160 countries across the globe. And we do cover within Oman, of course, but we also spread the wings outside. So therefore, the main objective of it is that Credit Oman is fully owned by Oman Investment Authority, OIA, amongst the other companies within the umbrella of OIA. And this is the main task for it.
Yes, very interesting. And let's dive right into the roles of Credit Oman and what do they play in enhancing our exports to the world?
Okay, very good question. Today, if you look at the trade balance in Oman, Oman imports and exports. If you look at the exports element, there are two key components: the oil and gas, obviously, which makes a big significant amount of the exports, and there is the non-oil and gas export. If you remove the oil and gas and you compare it to the import size, we are what we call net importer. So take away the oil and gas exports from the country, which are the mainstream. And then if you want to zoom in and focus into the non-oil exports, you subtract that from the import, then we become a net importer, meaning that we import more than what we export if you exclude oil and gas. So the idea here is that try to amplify the non-oil export from a diversity point of view. If you look at the non-oil exports in Oman, the top three sectors, if you may, are basically petrochemicals, we have metals, and we have urea, which comes along the top three, which constitute, on average, depending on the commodity price and the trade volumes, they hover around 70 to 80% of the non-oil exports. Therefore, we are left with about 2 billion rial, approximately, worth of other sectors of export. Hence, enhancing those areas, enhancing those sectors to go for, and then, increasing their market share abroad plays a big role. If you look at the trade conglomerate as a whole on the payment systems, you have, on average of averages, you will have about 20% is being traded on cash, meaning I will send you this money and I'll export your product and you give it to me in cash. There is a 40% which goes under banking products like LC confirmations, bank guarantees, etc. And it is estimated that about 40% of the trade goes into what we call open account or credit accounts, whereby the seller offers 30 days, 60 days, 90 days credit, of which after that they become due for them. Now, there is a huge pressure in the global market. You would see that there are some strong markets like Chinese market, Turkish market, which are dominating the world in terms of trade, and we have seen a very good, strong examples of those. Because trade is the outcome of all of these sectors, manufacturing, etc. So if we want to all said and done, with all due respect, our market remains economically limited because of the population size, because of the geography, etc. So companies are always highly encouraged to diversify and spread their wings across and then go into the export domain. So the objective for Credit Oman is basically to support them in case of a credit sale. So if they have a cash sale, they have no credit risk. So they are not fearful of not getting their money because they are largely secured. If they use LCs and bank products, also that's equally secured, although there are some products where we can support. But the biggest concern for any businessman today, if he sells, would I get my money back? So that is the main motivation. Now, leave aside the negotiation part, how much is this done, and what are the specs and all of that. These are pure business talks when they come to their specific buyers. But on the other side, the end game, will I get my money? If you observe a lot of the local companies, they have very strong motivation into selling. But the biggest risk they are probably not aware of, and it hits a bit later, is that when they are not keeping in check of their account receivables. So if the account receivables are falling behind, it's like an engine running, but without the fuel. So you sell on credit and you expect your money back on 30 days or 60 days. If that money doesn't come in, then you will definitely have a gap in your operations in terms of cash flow. And that's where Credit Oman can come in. So what Credit Oman offers, in a sense, is that it provides what we call commercial risk cover and political risk cover. In very simple English, what is a commercial risk? If the buyer defaults or becomes insolvent. Insolvent is simply bankrupt. Default, that if you give him, for example, a 60 days credit, the company defaults beyond that, say suppose a month or 2 months, then that party becomes a default. It is still in business, but it has defaulted, protracted default, for example. So these are main concerns. And against that, of course, Credit Oman collects a nominal premium, similar to the insurance setup. The other type of cover which Credit Oman offers is what we call political risk. So suppose a Omani exporter goes into exporting into a country, some political situation arises in that country, whereby the transfer back of the money becomes a challenge. So that the buyer cannot transfer the due amount back to whether the government imposes any particular sanctions. There is an act of war somewhere. There is a economic turmoil which has happened. They want to preserve their foreign currency reserve, for instance. So any of these situations, when they arise, it is beyond the control of either parties, and that's where again Credit Oman can kick in and then help to pay the claim for these companies and then help in recovering those proceeds. So if you look at it from economic perspective, it makes Oman more competitive, a diversified economy. Export any given day will create jobs, will create reserves of foreign currency, will create a know-how, will create also a stabilized economy, will spread the knowledge about the country. So today we can, when we look at certain products, we can associate them with countries. And that is part of the overall branding equity of a particular country, because you can associate easily some of the, like we do in the landmark. If you look at the Eiffel Tower, you say this is Paris. If you look at Burj Khalifa, you say this is Dubai. And that is for the milestones, but for the products, there is also a mental association of some of these, which we have seen in some markets, and I think that emphasizes the brand equity of a particular car. So the benefits are quite immense.
Yes, and I was about to ask you, what other services do you do other than commercial risk and political risk? So you're taking that out, right. You're making it easier for people to do trade globally, and You're going over these. I was about to ask you what other services do you do, but you answered the question in a very good manner, which was that you also help in the branding for the country. You help people associate. Different companies can associate with what we have locally to offer here in Oman and to send externally to the world. So why is credit insurance very important for exporters? And this is in general, of course, and why is it very important for companies locally here in the Sultanate of Oman? Why should they approach Credit Oman for this service?
I think, like you mentioned earlier, fundamentally, if you look at many enterprises, predominantly locally, they were reliant heavily on a lot of government projects, because the government undergone a lot of infrastructure expenditure, a lot of requirements for building up ministries, projects, you name it. Over the last few years, most of the infrastructure has been actually completed. So what are the procurement today by the government done? Here I mean the ministries, etc., are done for basically maintenance, touch-ups, upgrades. So the expenditure is relatively far lower than what it used to be back on the days. So now, beside the financial situation, which the government is trying to correct now, and we have seen a positive impact on the credit rating, reduction of the debt, etc., all of these elements have made the private sector reshift its focus from buying from the government and aiming for the government directly towards going to other government-owned entities or the private sector for that matter. So this pragmatic shift which has happened, it has refocused the company. Now, the challenge at the same time is that many companies were assured when you have a government contract, for example, there might be delays within the contract, but you will eventually get your money. So that psyche of getting your money for sure has after the shift of in the market has changed quite a bit. Now people are dealing with other companies. The other companies might have their cash situation. They might have their market dynamics of their own. They are vulnerable. They might go bankrupt, for example, which is very few cases, whether domestically or export, or they might be delaying on their payments. So I think it's a wake-up call. It's like Corona. It has its pluses and it has its minuses. But I think these shifts have created some sort of awareness within our own market, within the private sector, whereby they are now identifying that, okay, if I need to insure my factory, if I need to insure my staff, why can't I insure one of the most valuable assets which I have today, which is called account receivable? I would like to highlight here that we don't cover the receivables from the government, because this is a 100% owned government entity, and we don't also cover retail. So if somebody wants to sell to Mr. X on credit, this is not usually covered by Credit Oman, and if he wants to sell directly to the government, this is not typically covered by that. So why is it important? Now, you have number one, on enterprise level, like I mentioned before, a lot of people feel secure that the money will always come from such projects. Even if they are delayed, they are highly secured. Now, if you're going on B2B, business to business basis, that is not certainly always the case, because the other company will have a different situation at a point of time. So you will be at risk. So we are seeing, if you can call it an enterprise level risk framework. People are adding the account receivable, the credit element, into their risk matrix of things. So there is a risk for you not getting your money at all. So this is added back. There is another benefit if you look at, for example, on the asset side, on balance sheet, you have something called account receivable. If you don't receive it, it's a non-performing asset eventually. I'm sorry if it sounds a bit jargonish on the financial part, but those friends who are in the financials, the accounts, etc., they will understand that the non-performing asset is a pure pain, where you have, you've sold the product, but you're not getting your money out of it. So buying such a product does release that pain, and that helps you to realize such elements.
100%. It helps a lot with making you secure in your business and moving it forward. So you've talked a lot about the efforts that are done by Credit Oman and how you enhance businesses, especially when it goes to trading globally outside the country. So I did want to ask the question, what sectors do you cover as Credit Oman in your current forum?
We cut across all sectors, Ahmed. So there are two champion sectors, if you may. One is FMCG, fast-moving food items like meat, cooking oil, and these elements which we can see quite often at the groceries. So that is, and the hypermarkets. The second one is the building material. Whether it's steel bars, it can be tiles, it can be porcelain. So these are the two key sectors which we cover. Nonetheless, we have petrochemicals, which is on the growing side of things, whether it's plastic, ethanols, and the byproduct, the downstream of those products. We have seen a very good uptick in the fisheries sector. We have seen a very good uptick in the agricultural sector. We started, in fact, doing also service sector, whereby we have travel industry, for example, has recently we added to our portfolio. You see, the idea is very simple. If you have an account receivable on credit and you have two-side transaction, that's an area where we can simply cover. So whether you are in the service domain, if you have an IT services, for example, or you are a designer of websites, even to the smaller scale of things, so that is something which we can cover. So yes, we do cut across all sectors. What we don't cover is, like I mentioned earlier, the retail sectors. Plus, we don't cover the government sectors, and we don't look after the pure real estate because it's self-sufficient, and part of diversity plan, as you may know, government is trying to focus on key sectors, key 5 sectors.
Well said. I had a question that just came into my mind, and it's a very important strategic line for the government in the upcoming days, which is green hydrogen and its products. Have you came across this? Are you going to look into it into the near future as Credit Oman?
ESG and sustainability have become a centerpiece to the globe, and Oman, I think, has signed up, as you may know, into the net zero by 2050. So what we try to do within Credit Oman, we try to encourage our exporters and our domestic sellers, companies, to try to embed these practices into place. So we have also introduced a recent product whereby, for example, let us because of the reduction of subsidy, for example, under utilities like electricity and all of that, has become a concern for many companies to control their utility bills. So some of these companies, based on the ESG and the green initiatives and such, they have considered putting some of the renewables like solar. So now they want to install solar, but they don't want to stomach the entire capex, the entire investment upfront, and they want to stagger it over a period of time. So this is something which we can offer, where a provider of panels, for example, can have an installation into a company, and they can have an agreement with them for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever is the period in agreement. And Credit Oman can in turn support if they are getting payments over the period of the 7 years. If they get some certain installments, if the buyer of the energy or the panels for that matter defaults, then Credit Oman can step in. We are working also with a couple of financial institutions, because there are, when you and I think about borrowing, we first go to the financial institutions, to the banks. So therefore, they are the gateway, and we are trying to aim for those gateways to basically try to jointly service such people on demand.
Another important question is, if I was, let's say, to come and work with Credit Oman,
Right.
what are the different risks that would be covered for me as an exporter from the country to the globe? What risks would you cover as Credit Oman?
So there is, for example, we have seen multiple scenarios. We have seen that some of the governments, we have nearby governments, we have, not to go too far, Sri Lanka, for example, have recently witnessed a lot of economic challenges. So in such a scenario, a country, not only Sri Lanka for that matter, there will be other similar scenarios, want to be protective of its foreign currency reserve because they want to import basic commodities. So they will stop businesses from sending the money out because it will deplete their resources. So that's one scenario. Sometimes you will have a change of government altogether, where the new government will have a different priority. They will focus inward, and they will say that, okay, we don't want to look outward for now. Let's get the house in order, and therefore we are unable to allow the buyers in their countries to send back the money. So there are multiple scenarios which can happen. It is in simplicity whatever stops the business, the buyer from that particular company sending back the money into Oman. So you can visualize multiple. Of course, we have a couple of exclusions. If it's a nuclear war, God forbid, it is cyber attack. These are extremes which are normally not covered within the policy. Nonetheless, our policy is publicly available. We are happy to share it. In fact, our teams on daily basis are in continuous interaction, whether it's an SME, mid-corp, or large corporations, financial institutions, to make them fully aware of what is the proposition and to retrofit it into their size. So for us, there is no small ticket. So he can be exporting for 1,000 riyal, or he can be exporting for 100 million. We are okay. We can adapt and cope for whatever size.
So you have something that is compatible for all sizes.
Exactly.
100%. Now, we do want to get into your recent achievements. So Sheikh Khalil, can you kindly share Credit Oman's main statistics for the first half of 2024?
Yes.
What are we looking at when it comes to Credit Oman?
Well, we cover domestic covers, so that let's suppose that a local manufacturer in Oman sells to a local company here in Oman. So that is covered within our portfolio, and it's on average about 1/3 of a portfolio of our insured amounts, and 2/3 of it goes to export because we have to support the local companies also selling locally. So if you look at the entire insured within the first half of the year, it was around 183 million riyal, compared to 161 last year. So you can see the dramatic shift upwards between this. So we are expecting to close around near about $1 billion, inshallah, worth of exposure, worth of coverage for that. So in the exports, we have increased about 10% in the first half by itself. On the domestic, we have increased by 7.5% of the exports. If you look at Oman, according to the National Statistics Bureau, on the latest bulletin, the non-oil export have increased by 8%. So in effect, we have slightly higher than the countries overall. But of course, they are looking at the entire gamut. So there are different multiple sectors for that. But alhamdulillah, we clocked 10% on export increase and 7.5% on the domestic part.
So we hope you reach your achieved target of $1 billion this year, inshallah. And we would like to look back with you at the end of the year and have you here to discuss more of those achievements. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Thank you, Ahmed. I just want to highlight that we were about 4 years ago, we were looking at around $250 million. Now we're looking at $1 billion in a very short span. Alhamdulillah, it's Shukr lillah, the team has been doing a fabulous job. We have a very robust and supporting board of directors. And of course, OIA stands behind these initiatives, and we are thankful to them. We are also sustainable, so we are making profits. We are not costing the shareholders anything. And in fact, we are, alhamdulillah, able so far to give dividends back to the shareholders. What I want to highlight by the end, Ahmed, is that I like to use this example quite often. When the founder of iPhone, when he created the first phone, he did not think so many times and consulted many people on what do you think about this idea. He had a very strong feeling, strong passion about it, and pursued it, and here we are. It's one of the largest companies in the world. Here in Oman, I think the world is literally at the palm of your hand, and then you can reach out to any country, anybody, just as as fast as you literally can. So what we encourage people is that look outside the jurisdiction. Look outside Oman and start to consider exporting seriously. Some people say that there are documentations are cumbersome. I have to file for this. I have to file for that. I might not get accepted. But we have very great examples in this country, very well-known companies. When they have initiated this exercise, remember, it doesn't take you a full time. So you send an application and you wait. Somebody will send you an email to follow up. It might take you a year, might take you 2 years. But the minute you reach to those markets, you are well established there. You're well diversified there. You have a landmark. You have a reach elsewhere. And you have spread your wings in a better way, and rather than clustering yourself. So we also have, because of the overall regional political situation, a lot of consumers are preferring local products. I think this is a golden opportunity for people also to propel and try to replace those products which are less favored by the local or even boycotted at a point of time, and try to position themselves locally, domestically, in a very good position. Many products are very well known for good quality at large. Serviceability, we are here. So if I need something to be enhanced or I can get a feedback from my market quickly, my advice to the traders and those manufacturers who are working here, do consider expanding. Because if you are early bird into it, your learning curve is faster. Your ability to enter new markets is better. Don't be fearful about approaching markets. Oh, this is a European market. They might be very stringent. In fact, the fact that they are stringent, it upgrades your operating standards. It upgrades all of this. And we have fantastic examples here in Oman where we export to the US. And the US standards are quite rigorous. EU standards are very rigorous. Far Eastern standards are quite tough as well. But once you enter into that market, Oman today is building on its political brand equity. Oman is a friend with everybody in the world, literally. So based on that equity, you have seen that the government is trying to pursue proactively in building economic ties and opening doors for either FDIs to come into the country or for us also to reach out to the rest of the world. Like they say, we have a very good tailwind into the economy. There is a lot of support, but you have to look either it's a development bank, SME authority. There are a couple of levers. Don't rely on the government to spoon feed everybody into, and this goes especially for the SMEs, to spoon feed you with everything. You have to be progressive. You have to have strong perseverance into achieving what you want, and then sooner or later, before you discover it, you're gonna be there. And just leverage on technology. Technology is an awesome thing.
An awesome thing indeed to use as technology. And this is a brilliant message by Sheikh Khalil bin Ahmed al-Harthy, who is always saying strive, think big, and go beyond your capabilities to grow and become a big shot and someone who is big. Sheikh Khalil bin Ahmed al-Harthy, CEO of Credit Oman, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Pleasure.